This is WEFT Champaign, 90.1 FM, community radio for East Central Illinois, streaming live at www.weft.org. The views and opinions expressed here are those of the speakers and do not necessarily represent those of WEFT, its Board of Directors, Associates, Station Manager, or Prairie Air Incorporated. The following program is pre-recorded and consists of two parts. The first part is a rebroadcast of a program first aired in 2011. The second part was recorded on November 1st, 2015. Welcome to Weekend Heartbeat. I'm Sean David, and this is a new lamp.
New lamp for old. New lamp for old. Remember how Aladdin headed out to get oil for his mother's old dented, tarnished lamp? And in the market he met a magician calling out these words. This strange man was offering to give him a brand new shiny lamp for his old one. That's what I want to offer you, if you'll have it. A new lamp of spiritual guidance. But maybe you already have such a lamp, which still burns brightly. Great! You are still welcome to join us simply to learn who we are. But maybe your lamp of divine guidance has gotten dented and tarnished like Aladdin's. Or perhaps you have no such lamp at all. To you, I offer a new lamp. Hi, my name is Marilyn. Welcome to A New Lamp, a program designed to make you acquainted with the Baha'i religious faith. I hope you will choose to spend the next few minutes with me. Thanks.
He was born in the springtime, the end of the winter, nurtured with love on his grandfather's knee, a wave of the ocean, a shell of great splendor, the most priceless pearl we'll ever see. And he wanted so much to work hard, and he wanted so much to please. Sent far away to finish his schooling, a telegram came returning him home. Born to a station he may not have chosen, he carried a mountain the rest of his days. And he wanted so much to work hard, and he gave so much on the way. Who trained the trees in the meadow? Who cleared the paths on the hill? Who placed the flowers in the garden? The guardian, the guardian. Do 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 smile of his friendship, warming each quarter, the kindness of his heart, sharing each year, compassion embroidered with love on his forehead, their petals and scent kissed everyone near. And he wanted so much to work hard, and he wanted so much to share. Who trained the trees in the meadow? Who cleared the paths on the hill? Who placed the flowers in the garden? The guardian, the guardian.
So far, we have reviewed the lives of the Bab, Baha'u'llah, and Abdul-Baha. Today, we meet the last member of the Baha'i Holy Family to lead the faith. Shoghi Effendi Rabbani was grandson to Abdul-Baha. Like his father before him, Abdul-Baha made a will and testament naming Shoghi Effendi as his successor and guardian of the faith. Shoghi Effendi was born March 1st, 1897 in Akka. As the extended family lived in one household, he had close contact with his grandfather. Though a lively, intelligent child, he was prone to illness. For his education, he was sent to the American University in Beirut and then to Oxford in England, where he learned a superb knowledge of the English language. He was to be the designated interpreter of the Baha'i writings. He also, of course, learned about Western culture and wore Western clothes except for the headgear, which was still the Eastern Taj. You may wonder why Baha'i writings are done in Old King James English. Personally, I love it, having grown up with the King James Bible. If you find it difficult, it's simply a matter of getting used to it like anything else. As to the why of it, I have read before I became a Baha'i that interpreters of the Quran have always had difficulty with translation because the Arabic and Persian read so beautifully that the beauty of it is lost in English translation. So too with the Baha'i writings, which were in Arabic and Persian. Shoghi Effendi very much wanted the writings to be as nearly beautiful as the original. At the time of his translations, the King James Bible was still in use, and of course so was Shakespeare. He made no attempt to simplify it into the common English of the day, but sought to enlarge the reader's vocabulary. I have to admit, I sometimes have to refer to the dictionary. It was while he was still at Oxford that Abdul-Baha passed on unexpectedly. At the young age of 24, he found himself the head of this young, struggling religion. He was filled with grief and anxiety, and for a time retreated to the Alps to regain his health. His was a huge task. It was now time for expansion, both in the propagation of the faith, but also in developing its administrative structures throughout the world. At the shrine of the Bab, the superstructure had to be built. All the holy places preserved, lands purchased and developed for the Universal House of Justice, which would become the world center. His was an overwhelming task. He had a true partner in his wife, Mary Maxwell from Canada, whom he called Ruhia Khanum. She not only worked steadfastly with him, but continued his work, along with others designated as hands of the cause of God, until the Universal House of Justice was ready to take control of the leadership of the faith. Shoghi died at age 60 in London. He had been taken ill with the Asian flu and suffered a heart attack. He is buried in a cemetery north of London. He truly gave his life for the cause his great-grandfather had founded, and is held in high regard and affection by all Baha'is.
gazed upon his blessed face and never saw a beauty so sublime. It was my last look for all time. In agony and joy, in agony and joy. Laid him in his second shroud, carpeted his sleeping form with flowers from holy places in most bowers, a cloak of love, a cloak of love. I tucked the petals in his hands and laid the soft white silk so warm over his treasured form, across his face. My love, I laid you down for and on your breast a crimson rose, with what prayer and kiss God knows. I gently laid, I gently laid. Gazed upon his blessed face and never saw a beauty so sublime. It was my last look for all time.
O dwellers of my paradise, with the hands of loving kindness I have planted in the holy garden of paradise the young tree of your love and friendship, and have watered it with the goodly showers of my tender grace. Now that the hour of its fruiting is come, strive that it may be protected and not be consumed with the flame of passion and desire. Baha'u'llah. Thanks so much for being with me this morning. I hope you have found a blessing during these few minutes. If you want to learn more about the Baha'i religion, you can go online to www.bahai.us. To contact me, my email address is anewlamp@yahoo.com. Thanks, and have a great day. Good afternoon. We welcome to our November edition of A New Lamp, the Baker family. David, Heidi, Devin, and Matthew. Hi, and welcome.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Glad you're here.
Hi, Marilyn.
Hi, Bakers.
Hi,
Hi,
Sean.
Sean.
Well, this is fantastic. This makes the fourth time we have been able to welcome members of the Baker clan. As our previous guests, we have had David's mother, Amy Felty, and his siblings, Bill Baker and Zivar Baker-Guyot, and her daughters. We'd be in rough shape, Sean, if the Bakers left our community.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So, and of course, we know that you folks are descended from some of the earliest Baha'is in the United States from the early 20th century, including Hand of the Cause of God, Dorothy Baker. What a heritage. What do you think, Devin? What do you think of the heritage you've got?
I don't really think about it that much
Okay.
because the most I think back to is the people that are around or have left in the time that I've been alive.
Mm-hmm. It's a long time passing and a different era.
Yeah.
Just something that's nice to know.
Yeah.
Okay. So before we get into our actual conversation, I'd like to hear a little bit about each of you. About your family? Yes. Heidi.
Okay. So a while before I met David, I read the biography of Dorothy Baker called From Copper to Gold. My dad had just convinced me that it was a beautiful story about a really inspiring woman. And at that time in my life, I needed inspiring.
Mm-hmm.
And I was deeply touched by the story of her life. I remember when we got towards the end, and of course to her passing.
Yes.
I mean, I bawled as if like a very close friend had passed away on the one hand, and the other aspect of the tears was that I was inspired in a similar way as if a close friend passes, and now we say, I want to bring into my life some of those qualities.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember at what point after meeting David and realizing we would like to get married that I realized, oh wow, I'm marrying into this woman's family.
Yes.
But
There's-
I mean, you do see traces of I don't say a spiritual heritage. I don't know quite how to put it. People are people, and they will be imperfect, but you do see like that line of strength
Right. That she has passed
throughout.
down.
Yeah.
As we pass down to each of our, in all of our families, something to our offspring. Devin, I'm sorry. What do you got to say?
I was just wanting to say that I was very good friends with Dorothy's daughter, Louise, my great aunt.
Oh, okay. And now, where did she live? She didn't live in this area, right?
No, she lived in Texas.
Okay, so you got to visit with her there.
Yeah, and then she moved to I think Bolivia.
So that puts you a little closer to that directness there. You know what you were saying about the book? I felt that same way when I read it, that, you could see what was going to happen. She's on the plane, and we've had these comments, and there's going to be a bad scene ahead, and it's like, you don't want this to happen. That she went down with a plane in the Mediterranean. But yes, it is a very inspiring book. So I can imagine those who actually knew her personally have to have been very inspired. So before we get on to our regular conversation here, how about we hear a little bit about each of you, like family, job, school, whatever you think you'd like to tell us, maybe hobbies. Who would like to start? Matthew. Can you tell us a little about Matthew? How old are you, Matthew?
He's being a little shy today.
12. Devin?
Do it again. Devin,
Yes.
how about, would you like to tell us a little bit about you?
Which specifically would you like to hear about?
Well, kind of anything you'd like to tell us. How old are you, for starts?
I am 15.
You are 15 now. All right. And what kind of things are you interested in?
I'm interested in, well, there are a few simple sports that I like. Soccer, but I'm
Soccer?
really scared of soccer at the same time because I had a traumatic experience when I was really young.
Uh-oh.
And I like baseball because I saw a really cool movie.
Okay.
What movie was that?
The Perfect Game. It's probably one of the best movies of all time.
Well, great. And I think you're very much into a lot of creative things, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. I know that you and Sean often talk about things that you've got on your mind. What kind of things do you guys discuss?
We discuss like stories and video games.
Uh-huh.
And one thing that you were doing recently that I was sort of admiring with the stop animation movies you guys are doing.
Oh yeah.
No, but yours were really artistic and very sort of avant-garde, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, I make claymation videos, or was making claymation videos.
Great. Okay, let's see.
Dad, give David.
All
to
right,
David.
Dad.
Hi.
Did you grow up in this area? I'm trying to remember what your family did.
I grew up in central Illinois. I have various small towns around Illinois. We finally came to Champaign when I was 12-ish. Not quite sure.
Mm-hmm. You're the youngest in the family, is that right?
Yes, I'm the youngest.
Did you get picked on?
Sometimes.
We won't let your sister and brother hear that. What kind of interests do you have? What are your hobbies or general interests?
Nerf, playing with my sons.
I enjoy playing Nerf with my kids out in the cul-de-sac.
Just forget you've got a microphone in front of you. So we're just asking you questions.
like
what kind of things do you like to do, David?
What do I like to do? I like to role play, and
So okay, you like to role play. Are you kind of a ham?
ham.
Like to act? Acting?
Oh,
Kind of in your blood a
no.
little bit?
Never.
Acting is so in his blood.
Oh, really? Okay.
And I will tell you a story. It was perhaps the first time that we were in a place where we hung out together, and it was a convention.
Mm-hmm.
And neither of us were really interested in sitting in a convention room in a meeting. And so we happened to both be outside in the hallway with another Baha'i, and we mainly kept our eye on and entertained kids that would stray out of their classes. And one of the main things we did was read books to them, and David nailed every accent with gusto.
Oh, really?
And entertained those kids thoroughly.
We'll have to look into having you do some of that around here.
That was role playing.
That was role playing. Yeah, I understand. That's fun. I like to do that too. Well, let's see. We know about Devin likes to do. Now, how about you, Heidi? Tell us about you. Did you go to school?
Well, I did go to school because I really didn't have a choice.
Most of us don't.
But I enjoyed school. I enjoyed school while I was at an experimental magnet school in Evanston called King Lab. Yes. It's a special place, and I hear it's still really, really neat. And it ruined the high school for me, actually.
Really?
Yes.
You were spoiled, kind of. I've wondered that
Yes.
about your nieces who've gone to,
Montessori.
the Montessori schools, too. Well, how was it different? What was unique about it, Heidi?
Well, let's see. What was unique about it? It was in the early 80s, and one thing that they made sure to do, I don't know, I was too little to be aware of this, but memory says that my mom had to just kind of put my name in the pot as a white girl. And then as they were deciding who new they would bring into the school from the pot, they made sure to keep a certain balance of diversity within the school.
Okay.
So that was one thing that was very conscious. Another thing is, I remember the teachers had, again, I mean, I was, how
Yeah.
old? Between 9 and 14. So I don't know how accurate this is, but my memory says the teachers had a lot of leeway. They could do a lot of creating their own curriculum as long as they stayed within some general bounds. So we had very interesting classes. And the teachers often became friends.
With
Actually,
the students?
like the authority remained, but the friendships were real.
That's great. That's very interesting. You probably had comparatively small classes, I would guess.
I don't know. I was in a public school until 3rd grade. I mean, well, I guess King Lab's a public school too. But I was in a neighborhood school until 3rd grade. Kindergarten was fine. I disliked the rest of it
Sure.
very much. Then I went to King Lab and loved King Lab for so many reasons. And then I went to high school, and Evanston High School is huge. And so I don't know. Everything about it is big. So I wouldn't really have anything to compare it to.
So, you lived primarily up in the Chicago area growing up? or-
Yeah, we moved there when I was 4, and I didn't move out really permanently out of Chicago until I was 26.
Oh, okay. And tell us about your family.
About my family?
You did have parents, right?
Well, my mom's name is Helen Katz, and she worked at the University of Illinois and the Department of Educational Psychology for 10 years. She was the admissions secretary, which got a new and fancier and more accurate name while she was there. She passed away 3 years ago, and what I found out at her funeral from the many students that came was that she actually did something unique at the university and created a comprehensive or a simple program for the incoming graduate students to be able to follow in order to go through all the steps that they need to go through when they would like to be admitted.
so they
school.
could have some sense of organization then, guidance.
Right. She saw that it was really difficult, that there was a lot of confusion, and so she actually created something new. She actually created a system
Wow.
for them.
Okay. Now, you're an only child?
I am.
Mm-mm-mm.
Maybe I'm an only child.
Maybe.
Well, I have 2 different colored eyes. I'm right-handed in writing and partly left-handed in sports. So have you heard of the chimeras? Have you heard this? So there's some conjecture that there's evidence of the 2 sets of DNA,
And
which David thinks is hilarious. You could be your own sister.
and one of Dad's favorite jokes is
Oh, carry on, David.
Yes. Your favorite joke?
Heidi's parents were divorced for a few years, 12 years. And then when they got remarried, it occurred to me that Heidi, as her own twin, was also her own stepsister. So there are actually 4 of her. And so
Oh,
she's
I
her
don't think
own-
the world can handle it, Heidi.
She's her own twin as well as her own stepsister twin.
So you are asking about her family. She is her own family.
Yes.
So what are your hobbies? I know you've written a cookbook, and I know you've written at least one other book.
Well, back in 2009, or 2008, I got to be friends with another mom, stay-at-home mom, and I was starting to experiment with gluten-free baking at the time, and this woman, my friend Sandra, she loves to bake and loves to experiment, and she's a natural teacher. And so she would come over and we would spend, a good 5 to 10 hours coming up with recipes and experimenting and making a grand mess in the kitchen. And we decided to have a booth at the farmer's market. And so she has stayed in the background through all of it, but, it was the two of us who would stay up all night Friday baking, and then I'd be at the market on Saturday. And so we called it the Baking Bakers, and people asked for a cookbook. And so a couple years later, with the advent of self-publishing, becoming more of a thing, David encouraged me to just get on with it and create that cookbook because, people want it, and here we can do this. And I thought, oh, shoot, he's right. And that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of putting myself out there, daring to write the recipes down and say, here, spend money and follow these recipes,
And hope.
It seemed like a lot of responsibility. And the book is called The Best of Baking Bakers Gluten-Free, Dairy-Free Recipes. And then also I write. So I put out a book of poetry called Love Story, A Walking Meditation.
Oh, nice name.
And that's been well received, I think, on Kindle, as far as, the little people on Kindle go. A few months later, I gathered several stories that I'd had on Open Salon and fixed them up and made that into a book called Here Now, Waking Up to My Life. And I chose that title because after my mom passed away, it felt like waking up, almost like waking up out of a dream. And then before my mom got sick, she and I, both writers and very different styles. She had come up with the idea that we should take different aspects of our lives and events that have happened and each write about them and not look at what the other one wrote until we were done, and then just compile several of these and put them into a book. And even when she was sick and in the hospital, just a couple months, maybe even weeks before she died, she was still working to finish up the chapters.
Really?
Yes. And that book is called Tandem Tales, Relative Perspectives.
And it's good. I've read it. Well, we know that you've all grown up as Baha'is in the Baha'i faith, and the Bakers, of course, have a long history. But Heidi, you are second generation, right? How did your family come to be Baha'is?
My mom grew up Jewish on the Christian side of town, and as far as I know, she and her sister were the only Jews in the school, and she caught a lot of grief for that. And one of her high school classes, somebody did a report that they were allowed to make it something fictional or something that really happened. And she did a report on the Bab and Baha'u'llah. And when class was over, my mom came up to her and said, "Hey, are those guys for real?" And that was it. I mean, that was the beginning of her study. And then she just could never handle the idea that God would say, this is the one and only way for all time, and everyone else, if you don't find this and if you don't believe this, then no good for you. But that's what she got from all sides, outside of her family and I guess the synagogue. So when this classmate shared the idea that religion has been revealed progressively for all time, and that what's being revealed is really one faith,
Yes.
for one people on one earth, revealed according to the needs of the people that a messenger or prophet came to, but that I guess that God was playing fair. She really liked that.
That's great. Yeah, I think a lot of people find that as an opening to the Baha'i faith, that the idea that somebody says, this is the only religion, well, what about mine? And so we you end up feeling like, oh, all these other people are lost. And we don't feel that way. We feel like each time there's been a new messenger come, he has revealed a little more and a little more. And so we keep growing as humanities in our spiritual growth. Okay. Now, you folks have had some really interesting experiences over the past few years. I'd like to find out what you've been up to. You've been kind of living, shall we say, outside the box, not in kind of the usual lifestyle that most folks live in. What can you tell us about it? What have you been doing over these last few years?
When I was younger, we never lived in any one place for more than a year, or around more than a year. I mean,
Okay.
a few months at a time.
Yeah.
The reason for this is because my mom and dad, and not completely me, really love to travel. And as we traveled around, we kept going from Illinois to someplace, then back to Illinois, then to somewhere else, then back to Illinois. And I never remembered the other places except Texas because we kept bouncing around. But I remembered Illinois, and I really liked it because our family lives here.
Basically, this was home when you were ever here long enough for it to be home. Is that right?
Yeah. And then recently we decided to stay here in a house, which was nice because I like houses, for like 6, 7, not 7 years, a while. We stayed here for a long time.
So you feel like you're able to like make friends, kind of get a feeling of stability?
Get a feeling of stability. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you're traveling all over the place, it gets kind of hectic.
Well, what kind of things did you see while you were traveling all over the place?
Campgrounds. And there was one time when we were traveling through a desert where there were these huge, towering sand dune mountain things. They looked pretty cool. I don't remember where that was, though.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere in the U.S.
Yeah. Yeah, David?
Early in our marriage, Heidi I discovered that Heidi liked to move from place to place. And I think in the first 3 years we were married, we lived in like 7 different buildings. maybe more. And at one point, I told her I hate moving, and I wasn't game to keep doing it, and we needed to pick a solid building to live in.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't remember exactly how I said it, but I basically said, I don't care if you pick a house here or an apartment or buy an RV. We're just not moving out of it for a while. We're not moving again for a while. And her eyes lit up, and she got right on the path to getting an RV. So
It doesn't sound like that's quite what you really meant.
Oh no, that was fine with me. I actually did mean.
Oh, did you?
I hate moving, and I don't hate moving locations.
Okay.
I love moving locations, but I hate moving all the stuff.
Right.
So in an RV, you no longer have to move all the stuff because you just drive it to the location, put the feet down, and you're all good to go.
There you go.
Am I supposed to address that somehow?
If you want to.
Actually, I was reflecting on the first few places that we lived. The first 2 were in Galesburg, Illinois, and the first apartment it just had turned out to be a bad choice all the way around. It was in
That place was awful.
There are a lot of people I love in Galesburg, but we knew this was not going to work because we were downtown Galesburg. Downtown at the time had several bars right near our apartment, and they all let out at 1 a.m. So what would happen, and we finally figured out the pattern, didn't take very long, is that I would wake up at 1 a.m. with bad dreams, and then I would hear people yelling horrible things at each other down below. I mean, screaming at the top of their. It was regular. So within a couple months, I said, "Look, I grew up in Chicago. Let's just we'll move to Chicago, right? Just the 2 of us, easy peasy, right? We can rent a room or something." And we did. Another friend was renting a room in a house, And it was a little west of where I grew up, and I didn't realize what a difference that would make. So David, who had grown up in small towns, and then Champaign-Urbana, which he just thought was enormous.
Champaign was huge.
So now
the high school I went to was larger than the population of the town I was in before here.
by several times, actually.
Yes.
So we moved into this building that turned out to be right behind 94, as in the backyards of the people across the street. If you go over the fences, you could climb up. Well, nobody would, but you could climb up and get onto the highway.
Ooh.
Okay, so 94 was that close. I didn't realize that how nice it was to have grown up on the lake and not dealt with the pollution being so concentrated right there. And so within a couple months, David had like a wound in the back of his throat, and he was coughing up blood, and he was nauseous all the time. There was another guy in the building who one day, this is what clinched our move, I think. One day, David was talking to him about what was going on, feeling nauseous and the coughing and whatever. And the guy said, "Oh, yeah, I went through that for like the first 4 months I was here. And then I got used to it. It's totally fine now. You'll be fine." And David said, "I don't want to do that." And at the same time, by that point, I was a couple months pregnant with Devin. And so David's mom, as moms do because they're sweet and they love their children, said, "Will you two just please come to Champaign-Urbana and get your start here?" So we did, and that meant it was a quick move. We moved to her house, and then a few months later, we got our own place and have basically been based out of here. Even with our nomadic ways, we've been based out of here the last 16 years.
So essentially it's home.
So he says, "Oh, yes, we moved all these times in the beginning," and I must not let that go unanswered.
Your experience with the bars is a story that I'm familiar with. The last place I lived before moving to Champaign was in a very quiet community near the river, lots of woods, wild turkeys, etc., except there was one flaw in the ointment. Down toward the river, there was a bar, and it would be open on weekends. And when you say they let out at 1 o'clock, this quiet little neighborhood just, it was awful. I knew just exactly what you were talking about. And people coming out of bars are not particularly quiet, and they're not particularly well-mannered. Oh, golly. Okay. Now, as I recall, somebody had said something about a place you had been in your adventures that has a Baha'i meaning, that is a very special place in the desert.
Yeah. So after my mom passed and I was taking care of the paperwork and the logistics that I needed to take care of, including helping my dad get situated. It was a lot of strain because she'd been sick for several months before that. And David knew he was going to have some work in Arizona that winter, and he suggested that the boys and I just hook up the RV or hook up the camper to the pickup and just go spend the winter in Arizona. And Arizona sounded so far away because we've traveled, but not that far. So we went there in time for something called the Grand Canyon Baha'i Conference, which we just heard was big and nice, and it was. While we were there, I ran into some good friends from back in Evanston that had moved out to Arizona. And they said, "Well, what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do next? Where are you gonna go? Are you just gonna stay in the campgrounds?" And I said, "We don't have any plans. We're just here, I guess, just kind of unwinding from a really hectic couple of years." And she said, "Oh, well, Desert Rose Baha'i Institute has four camper spots, and you can just go live there." And I said, "Wow, okay." And I contacted them, and they said, "Well, everyone who lives here has to put in a certain number of volunteer hours because this is really it's really a school, and so the people who live here are in support of that. And I said, well, I'm in no position to commit to anything, to any volunteer hours. I need to sit very quietly and just take things at whatever pace I need to, and this is why. And they were so kind. They said, okay, and that's what you can do. And then when you want to volunteer, if there's something that fits, well, you can do that, but you just come and rest and take your time. We did, and it is out in the middle of the desert, but it's been just beautifully landscaped. I mean, it was just such a beautiful retreat. And
So, Desert Rose, was that begun by Bill Sears and his wife?
Bill and Marguerite Sears.
Okay. So, you folks have been making some really great memories. You're an adventurous family. Well, we are glad that they are now living in the community here, and temporarily at least, more or less, for a while, settled, and an active part of the Baha'i community here.
And they are looking at each other right now.
Trying to figure out who's going to address that.
Okay.
I was gonna say that's why we got an RV, so that could be the pattern. So-
Okay. Shall we move on now and take a peek at what's going to be going on for the next few weeks at the Baha'i Center in Urbana?
Yes.
Okay.
On Tuesday evenings at 7 o'clock, there is a prayer and meditation meeting led by Joan Mills. Each Sunday morning at 10:30, there is a regular devotional program that includes Baha'i and other religious scriptural prayers and readings, and oftentimes music. On the fourth Sunday of each month, the devotional program at 10:30 will be followed by a potluck lunch at noon and game day, an afternoon for family-friendly fun and games for all ages. The Baha'i Center is located at 807 East Green Street in Urbana, a couple blocks east of Lincoln Square. It is located on the red bus line, and it is wheelchair accessible.
Okay. We'd like to finish by reading some Baha'i writings and hope that you folks will help us out with this. But once again, we want to thank you so much for being on our program today, and it's been a lot of fun having you here with us. David, Heidi, Devin, Matthew, thank you very much. This was fun. Did you think it was fun?
He's still shy.
Yeah, he's still shy. How about you? Did you enjoy doing this today?
Yeah, I did.
Great. Okay. So, would you be willing to do some readings with us, everybody?
Sure.
Would be happy to.
Great.
O fleeting shadow, pass beyond the baser stages of doubt and rise to the exalted heights of certainty. Open the eye of truth that thou mayst behold the veilless beauty and exclaim, hallowed be the Lord, the most excellent of all creators. O fleeting shadow, pass beyond the baser stages of doubt and rise to the exalted heights of certainty. Open the eye of truth that thou mayst behold the veilless beauty and exclaim, hallowed be the Lord, the most excellent of all creators.
My object is none other than the betterment of the world and the tranquility of its peoples. The well-being of mankind, its peace and security, are unattainable unless and until its unity is firmly established. Baha'u'llah.
The fear of God hath ever been the prime factor in the education of his creatures. Well is it with them that have attained thereunto. Verily I say, the fear of God hath ever been a sure defense and a safe stronghold for all the peoples of the world. It is the chief cause of the protection of mankind, and the supreme instrument for its preservation. Baha'u'llah.
So powerful is the light of unity that it can illuminate the whole earth. The one true God, he who knoweth all things, himself testifieth to the truth of these words. This goal excelleth every other goal, and this aspiration is the monarch of all aspirations. Baha'u'llah.
O Son of Man, write all that we have revealed unto thee with the ink of light upon the tablet of thy spirit. Should this not be in thy power, then make thine ink of the essence of thy heart. If this thou canst not do, then write with that crimson ink that hath been shed in my path. Sweeter indeed is this to me than all else, that its light may endure forever. Baha'u'llah.
God leaves not his children comfortless, but when in the darkness of winter overshadows them, then again he sends his messengers, the prophets, with a renewal of the blessed spring. Abdul Baha.
For you, I desire spiritual distinction. That is, you must become eminent and distinguished in morals. In the love of God, you must become distinguished from all else. You must become distinguished for loving humanity, for unity and accord, for love and justice. In brief, you must become distinguished in all the virtues of the human world, for faithfulness and sincerity, for justice and fidelity, for firmness and steadfastness, for philanthropic deeds and service to the human world, for love toward every human being, for unity and accord with all people, for removing prejudices and promoting international peace. Finally, you must become distinguished for heavenly illumination and acquiring the bestowals of God. I desire this distinction for you. Abdul Baha.
To find out more about Baha'i events taking place in Champaign-Urbana, or if you'd like to listen to previous New Lamp programs, you can go online to www.cu-bahai.org. Or if you would like to learn more about the Baha'i national and international community, go to www.bahai.us. Thank you again for joining us today. I hope you'll join us again next month. Goodbye.
Thanks for listening to this week's Weekend Heartbeat on WEFT Champaign 90.1 FM, Community Radio, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, streaming live at www.weft.org.